Welcome to Divisionalysis. The journey you're about to witness has taken over 6 months. Countless hours of gathering data. Join me on a journey into the world of assault rifles. We begin our journey with a curious group of assault rifles. In a strange quirk of evolution, these weapons were born with only 3 appendages. For testing purposes, their 3 appendages has resulted in the team using equipment with 60% critical hit chance and 141% critical hit damage. We start our voyage with the AK. This weapon possesses the highest base weapon damage of any AR, but due to its limited appendages, this results in it slipping to the number 2 spot for average bullet damage. What is traditionally known as burst DPS is hindered by its slow fire rate, but the AK compensates for this by having the ability to maintain that damage for longer than any other in the species. Next is the F2000. It possesses an exceptionally low damage degradation rate, making it capable of delivering a large percentage of its damage throughout the majority of engagement ranges. And that damage is quite formidable, ranking at number 5 on the burst DPS scale. Able to sustain that damage for a relatively short period, the F2000 is aided by excellent reload times. The Honey Badger, not only one of the coolest names, but in my opinion, one of the best sounding weapons. Although ranking among the middle of the pack for damage and relatively slow reload times, the Honey Badger has excellent accuracy and stability, enabling the user to deliver more rounds on target. Looking super cool whilst doing it. The PDR, an unremarkable weapon by most standards. But recent research has revealed that the PDR has undergone an unnoticed evolutionary leap. The PDR has silently adapted to its environment, and its reload times mutated to produce times quite a deal faster than originally thought. This may see this weapon saved from extinction. Only time will tell. The team and I now relocate, this time to the world of the more commonly encountered four-appendage assault rifles. The change of conditions means the team's equipment also has to adapt, this time seeing a small change to crit chance and crit damage. Next stop is the ACR. Another weapon with a low degradation rate. It has a reasonably high bullet damage, but this is offset by its low RPM and slower reload times. This results in it rating almost at the very bottom of the burst DPS scale, but don't write it off completely. The ACR has staying power and is one of the most stable weapons and has a predictable recoil pattern, making it a favorite amongst newer players, especially those on console. The military, or black market AK, is almost identical to its 3-appendage cousin. The variations between the 2 varieties make it virtually pointless to attempt to differentiate. A slightly lower base damage than its cousin is made up for by the utility and added damage provided by the 4th attachment. Both weapon varieties' ability to deliver damage are made difficult by the weapon's handling. The AUG. An interesting bullpup design is made more interesting by some of its unique characteristics. The SMG sights and a strange recoil pattern tend to make potential mates shy away. But for those that can compensate for the handling, they are rewarded with a low degradation rate and one of the fastest TAC reloads in the regular gene pool. The Carbine 7 comes from a close group of weapons, which includes the Honey Badger and the M4. Although different in nature, these weapons are characterized by their ease of handling, similar optimal ranges, burst DPS, and reload times. The Carbine is a favorite of some people because it sounds awesome, but attachment is made fonder by the difficulty of finding a Carbine with good statistics. This is imperative, as the Carbine comes automatically with the overflowing talent. The IWI Tavor or the compactar, CTAR, often slept on due to its low bullet damage, abandoned for weapons with a higher base damage and the same RPM. What many people are unaware of is the CTAR has also undergone evolutionary change, which sees its reload times rank among the best in the game, and even competing with some of the more exotic assault rifle variations we'll be exploring later. Combined with this new research information, a larger optimal range than most weapons with equivalent RPM, its ease of handling, and its near vertical recoil pattern, we could soon see a return to abundance. The FAL, an unfortunate genetic deformity, has resulted in this weapon having a distinctly shorter magazine than its high-end companions. Average in almost every other way, I'm wondering what might have been if Mother Nature had chosen a full magazine size for the FAL. Until recent times, the FAMAS has continued to grow in number. This overpopulation is primarily the result of its burst DPS. Other weapons have been forced to adapt by lowering their reload times, but the FAMAS still retains one of the best TAC reloads, making it a popular choice of mate. Unbeknownst to many of the FAMAS's mates, the weapon has one of the lowest damage floors, and combined with a reduced optimal range, means the FAMAS has a disproportionately large degradation rate for a weapon with such a low bullet damage. Despite its excellent accuracy attribute, the weapon is difficult to handle, and many chasing the biggest numbers ignore these traits. This degradation rate is something that should definitely be considered when tackling legendary missions. The average engagement distance is farther, and the FAMAS's degradation of damage should not be ignored. Take nothing away from the FAMAS, though. In experienced hands, at close range, the FAMAS has few competitors. The G36 has good optimal range stats, decent burst and sustained fire, and average reload times. A super stable weapon that is let down by its accuracy, causing it to spray bullets at longer ranges. Accuracy talents and attachments can elevate the weapon's performance above the level of ordinary. In comparison to its direct competitors, the Honey Badger and the Carbine, the M4 has managed to achieve a slightly higher population size. Scientists believe this is due to a slightly higher RPM and more centralized bullet dispersion compared to its competitors. Although virtually imperceptible, the M4 has a slightly faster reload from empty, but a slightly slower TAC reload. Something to consider: the MK16, similar in nature to the ACR. It has staying power and is a very easy to control weapon. The advantage of the MK16 is slightly faster reload times and better accuracy, allowing for more rounds on target at range. The disadvantage, which undermines its accuracy attribute, is the MK16 suffers from one of the worst degradation rates of any assault rifle. However, across most common encounter distances, the MK16 can provide a laser beam of sustained damage. It seems hard to believe today, but a few years ago, the P416 was the apex predator amongst assault rifles. But due to an evolutionary hiccup, which some scientists call a nerf, the weapon suffered a reduction in damage and reduction to both its optimal range and the distance to its damage floor. As a result, the weapon has been on the brink of extinction. But as we've seen throughout our journey so far, Mother Nature works in mysterious ways, and the P4 has begun to make progress towards a stable population. Reload times for the weapon have undergone significant reductions in recent times, but this hasn't been enough to overcome the nerf, and it is unlikely that the P4 will ever return to the peaks of the past. The SIG. This weapon is often lost amongst a sea of other options. It provides decent burst damage, excellent sustained damage, and something normally missing amongst weapons with good sustained damage. This weapon has exceptional accuracy. The only true downside to the SIG is its reload times, especially its tack reload, but this is something that people can build for and reap the rewards. The TKB is the last of the common varietals we'll be visiting on our journey. An excellent weapon, which has both excellent burst and sustained damage duration. The weapon suffers from a high degradation rate, but that's a symptom of its high base weapon damage. Like most weapons with good sustained damage, the TKB has slower reload speeds and a poorer standard of stability and accuracy. As always, this is something that can be mitigated, making the TKB a solid performer. We now come to the rarest of the assault rifles. All are non-native species, artificially introduced into the gene pool. These weapons are so unique. The team is required to adjust their equipment before every encounter. As with most introduced species, some have carved out niche environments, whilst others have reached plague proportions. We start with the capacitor, a weapon that is excellently adapted to being the only assault rifle to abandon some damage to health for damage to armor, making it more proficient at taking down more dangerous enemies. It has developed a large crit damage attachment, which despite having no damage to target out of cover, it retains an above-average bullet damage. Don't let the lower burst DPS fool you. The capacitor has the fastest tack reload, meaning it can bite more often than any other assault rifle. The capacitor is accurate and stable, and only held back by its underdeveloped magazine. The chameleon. Just like its namesake, its skin will change color to suit its surroundings. The chameleon not only has changed its color, but completely changed its genealogical tree. Formerly an SMG, this weapon still carries some of the traits of its former gene pool. Namely, a slightly lower headshot damage, a short optimal range of only 20 meters, and terrible accuracy. But it does retain the valuable crit chance as well. The most unique quality of the chameleon is only seen when it is threatened. If the chameleon endures continued stress, it goes into an enraged state. This enraged state elevates its damage to levels unseen in either its former or current gene pools. These feats of the chameleon are so impressive, they'll be covered in a future episode. At full power, the chameleon has no rival. This brings us to the bighorn, probably the most obscure and unique assault rifle. A weapon of quirks and contradictions. It has the strange ability to temporarily disguise itself as a juvenile rifle. It has the best optimal range of all the assault rifles. It has some of the best reload times, but this only serves to counteract the shortest sustain time for its damage. This damage would be truly impressive if it wasn't for the majority of its attachments being denoted to handling, which is almost amusing, as the weapon handles like pure ass. To make this evolutionary joke even worse, the weapon's talent requires you to hit headshots. If anyone was able to tame the handling on the bighorn, their lethality would be unmatched. Probably the most elusive assault rifle, the eagle bearer. Although it openly displays its plumage, it is nocturnal. It does not live in the light zone and can only be found in the habitats of the dark hours. Recently, there have been random reports of sightings and a possible migration to the dark zones. When it was first introduced, it was so overpowered, local authorities were forced to cull the species in order to reduce its numbers. The remaining population was a husk of its former self. It's a shame more people haven't witnessed this magnificent creature. One of only 2 assault rifles that have developed an increased magazine size. It has retained a formidable burst damage and has one of the best sustained damages. Most interesting of all, it was recently discovered to possess the ability to reload at the same speed, whether the magazine is empty or not. If it wasn't for its rarity and the culling, this weapon would still be the most dominant, but a new species has been introduced. Just like the eagle bearer. When it was introduced, this weapon is overpowered. But this time, it doesn't come with the same rarity. This combination has led to cancerous domination of the environment. The St. Elmo's engine, with its grotesquely oversized appendages, is unstoppable. A magazine size almost 50% larger than native species, a weapon handling attachment that makes all three of the bighorns pale in comparison, and crit chance and crit damage, mods unseen in this habitat before. All of these combined with a high RPM give the St. Elmo's an unparalleled combination of both burst and sustained damage, all backed by lightning-fast reload speeds. It's easy to see how this weapon has surpassed all competitors. Given its plague-like domination of the environment, it seems destined for the same fate as the early iteration of the Eagle Bearer. And sadly, that's where our journey ends. I hope you've enjoyed it as much as I have. In the next episode, colleague Fog of War will combine all of the team's research data. With it, he'll determine which of these magnificent creatures will operate best when introduced to the urban jungles of New York and Washington. I'm personally looking forward to seeing how each weapon's genetic strengths and weaknesses contribute to the end result. Until then, Dave out.